Black African man, sharing, caring, loving, participating. Black African man, forcefully taken, languages stolen, customs broken, lost, beaten, destroyed. Black African man surviving, reclaiming customs, proclaiming justice, sharing, caring, loving, participating, succeeding. Black African man here to stay. We need you, we love you, we're with you. Black African woman. I wrote this poem in February 1995 in dedication to all black men who have given us such a legacy. I present it today in celebration of black fathers throughout the African diaspora and in recognition of the fathers and sons who are participating in this documentary, His Story, Reflections on the Black Father-Son Relationship Across Generations.
What we're about to explore next are the values, the point of views, the perspectives of several fathers and their sons as they reflect on the significance of father-son relationships.
Is that okay with you? Yeah, hold on.
Yeah. No!
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Wait.
Alright, Taylor, have that one. You can have this. What time's the bus? Come. Hurry up.
59 to the minute, so you could do 4 minutes or 5 minutes up. Here, put your running shoes on, please.
A long time ago.
Taylor.
Dad, did I have this for a long time ago?
What you did?
But
This video is about valuing the time that you have with your children. Especially as black fathers, it's important to realize that the time that we have with our children is limited.
I think this being Father's Day, it's good for us to have the opportunity to reflect back and recall some of the happy memories in our lives together as a family.
And so many of our black males, fathers, so many of their lives are cut short because of the stresses that we contend with.
This is You okay? Okay, jealous?
Stop it! They're gonna kick me out.
In my case, that was the case with my father. He died when I was 15.
Using the softbox as opposed for the fill light as opposed to the umbrella.
I had no father to provide a model for me. I had no one in my childhood who ever hugged or kissed me throughout my entire childhood.
There was a point in my life when I needed my father, I think, the most, as I contended with issues. As I contended with all kinds of issues. Yeah, I see it.
Peter Marsman is a photographer here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He, along with his son Mitchell, share their unique father-son relationship.
Mitchell came to live with me It was, I believe I was at a pivotal point in my life. I was working for DND for a number of years, had gotten laid off. So I was at sort of like in a crossroads in my life. It was like that sense of security in a job was gone. I was still in my 20s, and it was like, what's next? I knew I didn't want to just end up in another job. I wanted to pursue a career. And so I had previously decided that I was going to go back to school for a couple of years. Mitchell came into my life the same month that I started school. I was thinking we're using this as the enlargement for their 16 by 20 wall portrait. Which one do you think would be best for that?
I really like this one right here. I say this one's better.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good. We'll go with that one there. I've been given a model, the model which comes from my mother. And basically, that is to be responsible for your decisions that you make in life. And my decision in life was to have a son. My lifestyle was probably the first thing that was affected because I had a young child, probably about 6 years old at the time, that I needed to be looking after every day and every night. That means ensuring that his homework was done, getting him ready for school the next morning, getting him up for school in the morning, make sure his breakfast ready, make sure he has his lunch, make sure his emotional needs are being met. There's like so many things that was drastically changed in my life. My social life, for one thing, was just basically shut down for a while. Gone. I mean, it was from hanging out with the guys playing in basketball leagues. I didn't stop all of that stuff, but a lot of things I had to initially slow down because he required attention. I needed to ensure that he was okay. And when I knew that he was okay and that he was growing and maturing, then, I'm okay.
When I first went to live with my dad, I was about 6 years old. And before then, we had a lot of good times, so it wasn't hard to, start a relationship with him because I already had a good one with him.
Initially, that was also a time in my life whereas I knew that if I was going to do this here and do it good, and which I always wanted to, because I believe that if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to do something, I have to give my best. I won't be pleased with myself if I can't give my best effort. So I knew I wanted to be the best, absolute best father that I could be. And I knew that if I was going to do this, I was going to need help. And help in a deep sense, help from like within. In a spiritual sense, yeah, in a spiritual sense. And it's interesting because Mitchell coming into my life was a point in time that sort of almost triggered, so to speak, a deeper spiritual search for myself. I always knew, that there was God. I always knew about the Lord because my mother was a sincere Christian for a number of years, strong believer. But it was something that I always had said, yeah, I'll consider down the road. But Mitchell coming into my life was like, this is not a down the road thing. I need some help. I need it like now. And so throughout that process, I experienced myself like changing. I experienced myself changing from within, just like a more deeper value for life, a deeper passion for life, stronger values, stronger commitment to whatever I was doing, because I knew now it's like you have somebody right here that's watching you every day.
We started to play basketball more, talk, have good times, go to the mall or go run around the commons or play football and stuff.
I would say the positive experience that I had with Mitchell came out of something that was very difficult for me. And that was having to share with him, him being at such a young age, having to share with him about his grandfather passing away. It was something that I was up real early in the morning just searching and searching and searching because I had gotten the news early and I wasn't sure how I was going to tell him about it. And when I finally came up, when I was praying, I finally came to the words that I needed to counsel him with. I was like, okay, I can do this. And it's like, when he came upstairs that morning, I sat him down and we talked. It was like, Mitch, this is the situation. And basically I told him what had happened. And he was like so hurt over it because they had such a deep relationship, really strong relationship. But through all of that there, Mitchell was able to just be able to take what happened with his grandfather and use it in his daily life, whether he was having a challenge or something at school. And he came home from school one day and he told me, he said, Dad, you know how I get through a tough day or whatever things go. I said, what did you do? He said, I just think about my grandfather. I think about how he used to make me laugh. And that memory helps me, to get through what I need to get through. So that whole phase was a joyous experience for us because we went through it together. What would I pass on? I would pass on that you need to be resilient. You really do need to be resilient and bounce back when things are seeming bleak. I mean, just bleak. When it's like, seem like everything around you, it's not going. Everything is going against you. It's like, what's up with this here? Why can't I get a break anywhere? It's like the homework is overwhelming. It could be struggles in school, struggles, with other children at school. It could be you're having difficulty doing what you're doing in school or at work. It could be financial difficulties. It could be a lot of things. But just be resilient. Just know that your time is coming. Just know that you're going to get a break and you need to bounce back.
Listen to their dads. Listen to what they had to say. Respect them. Show respect to them. And have fun with your dads.
My name is Sobaz Benjamin. I am 35 years old. I was born in London, England. I currently live in Nova Scotia, in Dartmouth to be exact, with my wife, who I have been married to for about close to over 10 years. I have 2 children. Go, please.
I don't have fresh underwear.
There's fresh underwear right here. And one of the things that jumps out at me is just how much you, as a child, as a son, just how much I looked up to my father, looked to him for not only like economic means of support. I can remember needing or wanting to buy certain things and immediately telling Dad, can I have this? Or Dad, can I have that? And always, yeah, sure, son. And that security. Also, the looking at my father and seeing or believing that this is somebody who has all of the answers, and a need for a child to believe that.
Hold on. Can you reach? No, okay, here we go.
I am learning now more about my father by being a father myself. There's a lot I didn't understand about my father. He was very, I think, a man who had a lot of, in his lifetime, dealt with a lot of hardship. He came from the Caribbean, you know, and sent money home often to his parents, so that he, you know, could have that dream, that immigrant dream, you know, of going to the land of opportunity. In his case, it was England, and you know, pursuing a better life economically. My father died when I was around 15 years old. It was a time in my life at 15 where, you know, you have a lot of teenage years. Need I say more? But anyway, teenage years. You have a lot of questions. You have a lot of things going on that you don't understand, and that you desperately want to understand, but don't have the language. And by that I don't mean you don't have the language. You don't have the I don't know. It's maybe the ability to identify and articulate what it is that you're feeling and going through. I had my own issues to contend with as well. Living in a predominantly white country, and having to sort of figure out where I fit within that white country was challenging. There was a time that I didn't feel that I fit and had to do things in order to fit. Things like, you know, bleach. You know, I use skin bleaching creams to lighten my complexion because I felt it was my dark complexion was one that I didn't see reflected in a positive way. You know, and these, I could have asked, you know, I never did have the opportunity to ask my father about, you know, about his racial identity, about how he dealt with what strategies he used to contend with the society at large, you know, the external world. I didn't have the language when I was growing up. I didn't even understand what the questions were, and it's only now as an adult that I you know, wish that I had the opportunity to speak to my father and ask him certain questions that only, you know, only a son and a father can deal with. So where's the tag? Where's the tag? Jimmy, you don't know. Take a look. Yeah, that looks like that's the tag. So it is on backwards. Where's the tag? Okay, you make it more hard for yourself to put on now. Huh? Alright, let's go.
Did I have this for a long time?
The tag, where's the tag? When I share with my son that, you know, we have to have a positive attitude because what we put out there is what we get back. He may not understand at 5. I mean, he gives me the impression that he does understand, but maybe I'm just being, overly optimistic. But he will understand that at some point in his life, and I think it's important to sow those types of seeds that my child, that your child will be able to, that our children will be able to reflect back on and say, oh, that's what Dad meant, or no, that's what Mom meant. Because I know for myself that that's what I do. That's what I do every day. The stories that my mother would tell me, the stories that my father would tell me, their explanation of things. Even though at the time I thought I understood where they were coming from and what they were saying, it's only through my own experience of the challenges or similar challenges that they face that I understand what my father said when he said things like don't go looking for trouble, or be satisfied with what you have. Live within your means. Those things that parents always tell their children, and that children get tired and fed up of hearing, but you eventually understand what that means. So I plant those seeds within my own children and hope that they will grow as they grow.
Tony Smith is a musician here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and he, along with his son Jarrell, talk about the challenges and the rewards of their father-son relationship.
My name's Tony Smith. I've been born and raised in Halifax, Nova Scotia all my life. I lived in a couple of orphanages, lived in a couple of foster families, and basically found a girlfriend that I fell in love with at a very young age, and we got together and had a child together very young. So it was quite difficult at that time. My wife's name's Chalice. We had a son at that time who was Jarrell, and a daughter named Courtney. It would have been nice to be able to bounce certain ideas off, say, from a father or from a mother, and say, how do you handle certain situations around this here? Should you give a little bit of space or whatever? And I think that would have been, a lot easier, and with the family. And by having a strong family base would have been easier too. I think financially, when you had some little difficult times, you could say, well, help here and there kind of thing. But I know that probably would have helped. But again, my situation is different.
Just started my first year of university at St. Mary's, taking the arts. It's different, different from high school. A lot of studying and stuff like that, but it's good.
You want to provide a good family, and when it's hard to get a job, or or not know how to, when the next money's going to come to pay the next bill. I mean that's for people. Period. When they go through the teenage period, they're looking for their own identities, and they're trying to fit into their own social world that they have out there. Sometimes you feel that maybe they're going astray, and you don't know if they're going to go down the wrong track or not, and you always have that kind of doubt, or suspicion. And again, it's nice to know when you feel that they're going somewhere, is they always seem to come back when they do have the question, so you know that you're in a good space with them. So it's been a lot easier now, where he's getting a lot older and a lot more mature, and I don't have any concerns now about him making the wrong decisions or getting caught up with the wrong crowd. I think he passed that he knows exactly what he wants, and he circles himself around good people.
whenever there's a problem, stuff like that, I can always come to my parents, and they'll always give me their opinion and support whatever I decide or whatever they think action should be taken, I guess.
Joys and rewards I've experienced as a father is that I'm getting back a lot of my childhood. I didn't grow up in a traditional family in that sense. By not being raised by your biological mother and father, there's a lot of things I felt that I missed growing up that I'm able to receive from my kids, as far as love, support, encouragement, to know that you're accepted unconditionally, and it's very rewarding for me. It most definitely enriched my life, and it gives you the strength to try to keep things going sometimes when they get a little difficult.
When I was younger, when I first started school, we lived in a predominantly white community, and I think I was the only black student there. I used to get picked on by the kids, different kids. I mean, I had friends and everything, but at the same time, there was kids that didn't accept me. It always seemed like there was something going on at school with me and some other kids, with teachers and stuff like that. There was also problems when it came to my abilities. Some teachers would say some things, and other teachers would say the other. And
there was one particular school that was very bad when he was very young, starting primary, where some kids would give racial slurs and actually ganged them. There's like 3 or 4 of them would jump him every lunch hour. That continued as he got older to different schools, and he had some concerns around that, and I explained to him, very clearly that, be proud of your heritage. You have nothing to be ashamed of. That racism, as bad as it is, it exists. It will continue to exist. There will always be people finding some reason to dislike one another. Is that not to be concerned about those people, to be more concerned about the positive people that you come in contact with that respect you. The other people can deal with their own problems. So with that, Jarrell has a very good group of people. It doesn't matter what the color of the people are, what their sex are, or anything of that nature. And he's well respected by them. And I'm very proud that oftentimes when I visit some of his friends' parents' homes and the positive things that they have to speak about Jarrell, sometimes it's a little embarrassing because they go over so much about saying they wish it was their kid. But that I often say to him that I'll explain, pass it on to Jarrell, and I'm pretty sure he appreciates that. But as a parent, it makes me feel very good that he's making good decisions and being around people. And oftentimes these people, say if they're European persuasion, sometimes Jarrell may be out with them and encounter some racist activities from, say, law enforcement or whatever, and they would stand up for him. So I don't dwell so much on the black and white issue. I just tell them that there are positive people and there's negative people. Always surround yourself with positive people. That's what you are.
My parents are my parents. I have to, I always respect their decision and listen to what they say. I feel that my parents go for my best interest, so if they say, we don't want you going here or doing that, I respect that, because there must be some reason, for them not to want me. And it's not because they don't want me to go and have fun or to, do what I want to do. It's just they feel that maybe it's a little too rough or edgy.
Deacon Brian Bowden of the Second United Baptist Church of New Glasgow and his son Brent talk about their father-son relationship and share some of their musical talents.
To sit down and to reflect back of father-son relationships is something that you just don't sit down and think about. You just automatically do. If your son needs something, you give it to him, or you see that he gets what he needs. Like Brent been always supportive of him through his sports. We've been there, we've been to his games, we've been supportive of his music. Brent has taken piano also, and we've been supportive of Brent and the other children. I remember back when we're not professional musicians, but we are musical, and Brent plays the saxophone now through the school band. He started out with the clarinet, and I play a little guitar, and the wife plays the piano. So years ago, we used to be a singing family. We used to sing together. We used to do a lot of things together.
During the year and stuff, when I'm going to school, it's always something to do with basketball or something like that, right? Because, I mean, when I was playing basketball was just constant, like almost every day at one point and going away. And then something would come up, and I'll be like, say, look, no, I'm going. I already had this plan. I'm going away to a basketball tournament up in Amherst or up New Brunswick or something, and I can't do it.
I'm quite involved in the church now, so, and the children have their own things to do, so we're not growing apart. It's just that we're going in different directions and different avenues. Where Brent is seeking out a career in military, and I'm still involved in the church family, and Brent also is involved in the church family through the youth program and other functions that take place within the church. So there are times when we are apart now, but we are together when it needs to be.
Just as a career advancement, it's well, the reserve is a good look at Army life or military stuff in general, the Canadian Forces, Air Force, Navy, and Army. But it gives you a good outlook on what it's like, whether you want to go full-time or not.
The spiritual part is a very important part of my life and of my family life. Being a dad, being the head of the family, as Scripture points out, that the man is the head of the household. Today the women would disagree with that, but it's men have a role to play within the household, and fathers especially. And I feel that we as fathers, we're going to be held accountable if we do not follow that role, and as pointed out in Scripture, for us to follow. As parents, we are one, mom and dad. We are one in our thoughts and in our decisions. We don't see eye to eye all the time, and that's natural. But we do rationalize things out and try to come up with the best solution for everyone that's involved in the family.
Be open-minded, and I've growing up when I was developmental mind. I started with a lot of teachings from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And from that, I got similar morals of what I'm getting at home, how he went around the nonviolent approach, and just how he goes about that.
Do things with your sons. Do things with your sons, and as Brent has mentioned, listen to them. We can learn from each other. Life is a learning process. We can learn from the youth as well as learning from the adults. The youth can learn from adults. I would say that for fathers to try to understand where their children are coming from, in all things try to understand where they're coming from. And they have different ideas. We live in a hurried society today, and we need to take time for each other, especially family. Family are very important.
Irvin Carvey is a leader in the African Canadian community here in Halifax. His community involvement ranges from basketball coach to mentor to president of the Africville Genealogy Society. Irvin and his son Sean share with us just how important genealogy is when it comes to family.
Our relationship as a father and son, I think, is going to continue to grow. Our relationship as father and son comes from a base of our family and our history of our family, of fathers and sons who have, a lot of them who have come before us, and so hopefully, the relationship that we build when he starts having his own family and his own sons, that it'll just be a continual thing. I think that there's a way that we really truly do pass on, our culture and our heritage is through these relationships that we build as fathers and sons, and moms and daughters, fathers and daughters. Dealing with institutions like schools, like at the high school level, or even sporting organizations like basketball in Nova Scotia. And they tend to think that a lot of the children are fatherless, and they don't really appreciate the fact that even though the father mightn't be living in the house, a lot of times the father's influence is still there with their children. The larger family coming into play, the old black traditions of the extended family. And even though we're not like in a segregated area as a black community, those traditions continue to be there, of the extended family. Oh, I know your father, I know your mother, and you're going to get it when I call them. That's our family looking after each other.
If I was going to pass something along to somebody, I would just tell them, keep the lines of communication open, because once you close the lines of communication, then you got nothing. Like, talk to your kids, find out the 5 W's, who, what, where, why, and when. And I find a lot of times, if you're open with your kids are going to be open with you, and then you're going to know what they're doing, you're going to know where they're going, you got to know who they're hanging out with. And a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, that'll keep them out of trouble.
Reverend Dr. Donald E. Fairfax is Pastor Emeritus of the Victoria Road United Baptist Church. He, along with his 2 sons, Donnie and David, share their deep involvement and commitment to the African Canadian community here in Nova Scotia.
In this family, we were not restricted to the church alone. There was a lot of involvement in the community and in the home as well. The happiness that we may have enjoyed in the home certainly was a result of the things that Mom and I endeavored to provide for the family. We were very poor back in those days, 45, 50 years ago. There wasn't certainly the wealth that there is available today, but I think we soon became conscious of the fact that we were more or less a middle-class people and had to live up to that responsibility by providing education, extracurricular in the home and in the community, and not only the church, but to go beyond the church. The church was the basis, but we had to be a part of the community of the world at large.
I remember the calls to the house sometimes very late at night, and this, discussions where you had to go out of the house, and I just found that was just as much a part of our lives as it was yours, and I don't think we were none the worse for that experience. If anything, I think it impacted positively upon me in the work that I do today. Oftentimes calls for unconventionality in how you approach a situation that you may be called out or may be called pressed into service at any time.
There were lots of people from the church who, you know, if they thought that I was in the wrong place or perhaps not doing the right thing, they would be very quick to let me know what my place was and what I was supposed to do. Normal to share DAG with the community. And I think one of the things that made it seem, for me anyway, less intrusive is that you know, we always had Mom here. There was a support mechanism in the home, so it wasn't like you know. And I think we also knew that, you know, even though he was going, he wasn't going to be gone long.
As boys, you're under my watchful eye more than you realize. I more or less demanded to know where you were almost at all times. And I managed to get phone numbers, and I know you didn't want me to phone where you were, but if you weren't home on time, I had a list of phone numbers, and I would check, and you were here pretty much on time for meals, except you, David. You were always late, but we figured you were off playing type of thing. But I got to know the children with whom you played, and that was important. It was important for me to have an idea where you were. And this being Father's Day, I think that you yourselves as fathers make it your business to know where your children are, the company they're with, the company they keep. That's very, very important. Yeah. Never be afraid of invading their privacy. Their privacy should mean an awful lot to you as fathers, and it is as much as it did when you were boys growing up.
The professions that we've chosen may have been in some way sort of preordained because of the ability and what we learned in terms of being able to sort of share our family. We're all in sort of caring relationships where we're willing to share with people their feelings, to assist them in trying to get them through difficult times. And that's not work for everybody.
No.
Only certain people can do that. When you put yourself out there, there's a tremendous risk when you're in these types of professions, and we gravitate toward those, and I think that's because of what we've learned in the family. Yeah. What we've seen, you know, on a day-to-day basis, and
it becomes a part of you.
It does, and so you're not afraid to go into those areas because your experience has been that, you know, it hasn't been so bad. I mean, it's been bad for the people going through it, but as a helper, just being there, knowing what to say, the right words, sometimes is enough to help people through that very difficult time. I know there's a responsibility that I have as a father to ensure that I model in my family, you know, certain things, so to instill in them a respect for religion and a respect for a certain order, whether that just be a societal order or something that we've have determined is important.
Could you say
in the
this?
family.
The stepping stones you provide must always be there for your children.
That's right. Yeah.
Professor David Devine is the James R. Johnston Chair in Black Canadian Studies at Dalhousie University. He was the keynote speaker at a conference in 2001 here in Halifax, focusing on black fatherhood in the diaspora. Dr. Devine shares with us his childhood.
I had no father to provide a model for me. I had no one in my childhood who ever hugged or kissed me throughout my entire childhood. Not once. Because with me, it was abandonment. As a toddler, incarceration in a very large institution for children who were abandoned, called an orphanage, where you grew up with hundreds of other children. And then from there, as the climate of childcare changed, you're then placed into foster homes where I was not loved or wanted. I was a means of an income. And that took me up to 19 years of age. I never knew my father, never knew my mother. So not only did you pay me an enormous compliment inviting me here today, you also took a leap of faith, Wanda. Because how can I, who have never experienced fatherhood, talk to you with any degree of competence on what it's like to be fathered? So what did I do as a child? I read. I still read maybe 2 or 3 biographies a week. People's lives fascinated me. How did other people live and were brought up? What influenced them? What changed them? What motivates them? So I got some of my ideas from books. I looked to my friends who lived in families and looked at how their fathers and mothers looked after them, and I plucked what I thought was good from them. I looked to my school and I found teachers who I thought they would be good mothers and fathers, and I plucked desirable qualities from them. None of these people knew what I was doing. They didn't know my circumstances. You pluck from TV, from films, what you can. And I created a climate for me. There was no one else there. And I also believed that within black people there is a spiritual dimension. And how could I possibly be thrown into this desperate situation as a child through no fault of my own? How could that happen and there not be a purpose? So there must be a reason somewhere that I'm not supposed to give up. I've got to move on. And I did. And back on that now when I'm a father of 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. And my children do things that I was never able to do. They say things that I cannot understand as somebody who said these things as a child. They do things that I could never do as a child because I was too old, Wanda, too young. I've always been ancient. But that is my gift. And that is why I work with people, because I never rule anybody out. I do try and understand where people are coming from. And I've learned in middle age that that's what my purpose in life is. And my children, sometimes when I express dissatisfaction with their behavior, my children sometimes, when they say things that I don't quite like, they say to me, "Oh, Daddy, well, you were never a child." And they're right. They're right. They do it with love. And my children, they give me love. Funnily enough, without having received it as a child, I always had the capacity to love others. It's a funny thing. And my children love me. And I tell my children every day in my actions and in what I say that my life would be so diminished without them. And that's where I want to end. Thank you very much.